Welcome to Branding the Experience, where we discuss how we can create environments where employees actually want to go to work and customers want to keep coming back. Hi, I'm Ken Bader, your host for Branding the Experience, and I'm really excited to kick off the next season of Branding the Experience with an awesome guest. Let me tell you about her. Her name is Lisa Cherney, and she is the Queen of Clarity and the host of Get Effing Real Show. The Get Effing Real Show, I should say, that I have had the pleasure to listen to many episodes on. She has been mentoring millionaire entrepreneurs for over 20 years. She's spoken on over 750 stages. She's always a show favorite, and I know that for a fact because I had the chance to meet her at several new media summits. And she has amazing energy. She's super funny and leaves the audience with gold they can use right away. I can keep going on, but I want to get that gold right away. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. No pressure. I'll try to be funny.
That's right. You know, usually when we try to be funny, at least when I try to be funny, that's exactly when I'm not. So
it's so true. It's so true. I think I'm an improv specialist. So we'll react to whatever situation occurs.
Exactly. Regardless of how funny we are, I know we're going to have a great conversation because I want to talk about, especially as it pertains to your podcast, being unapologetically you, because I think so many times, especially in branding, being an employee of an organization, we're trying to be politically correct and we're trying to fit in, and we're not necessarily being ourselves and therefore not doing our best work. If you found that, Lisa, have you found that, you just have to be effing real and put yourself out there?
I have a background where I was in corporate for many years, and then I went out on my own. AT&T, Lowry's Foods, Lipton, and I also worked for advertising agencies where I had multiple clients in different industries. So I kind of have this full circle view of things. And I always found that when I could get my clients to really dive into what is the stand that their brand is willing to take, like what, and now I work with entrepreneurs. I'm like, what is the stand you want to take? Because to me, that's the fire of the whole thing. Now, when you work for a company, it's not your personal, stand, but it's like, you really need to know, what are we here for? My husband used to work for Haagen-Dazs, and he was like, it is all about the ice cream. Like it is the ice cream experience. Like that's an easy one to get passionate about, but wherever you are, it's finding what you're passionate about. What are you taking a stand for? Where's that fire? And absolutely, it makes a difference in your marketing and in your way you care for your customers, the whole shebang.
Yeah. And working with a number of service-based businesses, and that's most of our audience. The product is lesser in my mind. It's one thing if you're selling, Apple iPhones or see, I don't have any Apple products. I'm a Microsoft guy. But
oh my gosh.
I know. You're either one or the other. But if you're selling iPads, people are gonna stand in line either at the Best Buy or the Apple store, and even if they get treated like crap, they're just gonna go after the product because it's the product they want. But for service-based businesses, it's all about that experience, and it's about being, using your words, effing real with yourself. If you don't stand for something, you basically stand for nothing. Have you found that in your advertising experience and mentoring?
Oh, absolutely. And one of my GFR commandments that was probably born 21 years ago when I started a business, which my first brand was consciousmarketing.com. One of the commandments is don't worry about being normal, proper, or polite. And the confession question, because each one of them has a question, is where am I not speaking my truth? And it's such a great one for marketing. It's like, where am I not speaking my truth in my marketing? Where am I holding back because I'm afraid we're going to get in trouble or we're going to piss somebody off, or, where am I, feeling shy? And I just find, especially now more than ever, it's so crowded that the best way to stand out is to be unapologetic, is to take that stand, is to be authentic. And if you don't know what it is to be authentic, figure that out because it's really helpful in your marketing.
Yeah. it's amazing because one of the biggest branding mistakes that I keep seeing actually, and I've seen for at least 20 years, is we do this awesome job of marketing. As I've mentioned on this show before, I used a client example who's not a client anymore because they wouldn't listen to me. Yeah,
He's in
but
a
they
client graveyard now, but let me
yeah,
talk about it.
well, they're not even around anymore. They died
Oh, well, there you go. Well,
years
there you
ago.
go, because they didn't listen to you.
Well, they didn't listen. It's not just about listening to me. They didn't listen to the basic concepts of branding. And they did this awesome marketing campaign as they were trying to change their way of business a little bit. And they did an awesome job of visual marketing. The marketing director, they're very, very sharp lady. All the messaging was right on point with who they wanted to be, which was this family oriented, family feel type of business. But when you walk through the door, yeah, it was obvious that they didn't want you to be there. It was like, as I mentioned before, you turn on the lights and it's like roaches running, all in the different corners. Hey, if we don't make eye contact, we won't actually have to serve this person. So, when you're not speaking, to use your words, when you're not speaking your truth, via your marketing, and it's an experience that just doesn't match it, basically what you're doing is you're lying to people.
You're being incongruent, right? It's like
Yeah,
the inside doesn't match the outside.
yeah, exactly. What's been the biggest branding mistakes that you've seen recently, especially with all the changes that are going on with the so-called new normal? I almost hate saying new normal because it seems like we go from Great Recession, oh, new normal, COVID-19, well, it's new normal. Well, but what are you seeing in all this?
You know, this really inspired me to name a new way of marketing, and I'm calling it the unlaunch. And it's like unplugging from the old school marketing matrix. It's like how it feels, because the core of the unlaunch is sincerity and generosity, and it was directly inspired by the changes and the things going on in the world in 2020, because it caused so many business owners to be like, oh, I don't know, should I make an offer? I don't want to sound opportunistic, and should I put this launch out there? People are suffering, and there's so many opportunities to second guess. And what I really landed on was, hey, are you sincerely wanting to help people? Then it really doesn't effing matter
Yeah.
what context or the timing, because your heart, your intention is in the right place. And people freaking feel that. They know now, not everybody, but a good majority of people really are craving that realness, and the generosity part is super key too, because it's like, I really wanted to give away this thing. My client would say, I was like, but I don't want people to think that I'm just taking advantage. Like, hey, do you really want to give away the thing because you really want to help people? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Then just do it. Just do it. And so having sincerity and generosity being at the core of marketing decisions is completely revolutionary. It sounds silly. It's like picking up the phone is completely revolutionary now, And so it really actually inspired me to get more distinctive about a new way of being in the marketplace. And so I'm really having a lot of fun with it. I'm really having fun giving stuff away, being generous, being sincere. It's a blast. And you know what? People still will buy from you, even if you're generous and even if you're
Yeah.
sincere. So it's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, you hit on a key word that I've been using a lot lately, which is sincere. Yeah, I have a number of my clients are in the banking sector, and fortunately, I'll give them a lot of credit because they're asking the right questions, especially at the beginning of all this, because as you're fully aware of, a lot of times, organizations will have this big marketing calendar, and they'll say, all right, well, in June, we're going to do this big vacation loan promo. And And here we're talking, here we're talking about
Ixnay, the vacation promo A, or Acation promo, however that pig Latin works. Yeah, Ixnay.
exactly. Maybe this is one where we need to make a little alteration to what we were planning, but they're asking the right questions of, all right, what do we do in June, July, and August of this year? And, obviously here we are in October. And I'm really pleased that spurred a lot of good conversations of, well, what can we do? And some have even said, well, should we even put out there any type of loan promotion? People are struggling, we really want to get them in more debt. And I always come back to, well, how can you really help people? Because if you're sincere about it, if you're sincere about the messaging, in not necessarily just building your market share, but offering something that really is going to be of assistance during this time. For some, a quick personal loan really does make a lot of sense. That may be exactly what they need to get through the summer. And going back to the vacation thing, you know what? Maybe doing a pure vacation loan and encouraging people to go to Hawaii, which you probably can't even go to anymore. You probably still have to
Depends on the month. I've heard
Yeah,
multiple things. Yeah.
exactly. But you know what? Maybe for families that can afford it, maybe doing some type of RV loan or boat
Absolutely.
loan where, hey, we're not gonna go on that cruise, but we could use that money and maybe get a little bit more from our bank or credit union and be able to RV across the country or get that boat we always wanted and spend time doing that this summer or later on this year.
Yeah, there's always a way. If you really stop, and that's one of the other GFR commandments, is
Yeah.
know that sometimes stopping is the most lucrative thing to do. It's very counterintuitive, but often we don't, just because we have our fears about what that, means and what's going to happen. But often if we stop or pause and just like inquire, take a minute, I feel like we land on it, or we ask advice of the perfect person, or something comes into our awareness and we're like, oh my God, how did I not think of that? But sometimes we're just moving so fast, and which is one of the blessings of this whole thing, is I think it's slowed us down in so many different ways, that I feel like it's given us a chance, if we take it, to just give me a minute. Let me really feel what's going on here. And so much wisdom for marketing can come from that.
Now, a word from our sponsor, Bader Training and Consulting. BTC has recently partnered with the Success Corps to offer the Podcast for Business Success package. Launching a podcast allows your business to engage directly with your established audience, strengthening an existing bond while simultaneously developing future relationships with prospects who they may have never done business with or met otherwise. Ken Bader and Sean Douglas utilize branding, culture, and strategy to increase engagement between company and customer by launching your uniquely branded, strategically designed podcast, fostering customer relations and business growth. Ken and Sean have hosted over 1,000 podcast episodes across multiple shows and channels. You can watch live, in person, or virtually as they speak at most podcast events around the country, highlighting their expertise as icons of influence in the podcasting space. Ken and Sean not only teach the art of podcasting, but are well-known and respected practitioners, launching dozens of top-rated shows between them and their clients. Ken is also a frequent contributor to Podcast Magazine. Rather than launching your podcast on your own, wouldn't it make sense to have not one but two icons of influence teach you how? Of course it would. So harness the power of your past to launch your future with a perfectly branded podcast. Contact BTC at info@btcinc.net today with podcast package in the subject line for more information today. Well, switching gears slightly, because you mentioned your GFR commandments a couple times, and I'm a big fan of those commandments. I found myself looking at the little card myself, like, all right, which commandment am I screwing up today?
That's not the question, Kenneth.
I know. That's just my warped mind, which you know very well is
I
warped.
do.
But the GFR commandments are very close to your brand and who you are and how you assist people to build their business and build themselves for that matter. You tell us a
Yes.
little bit more about the GFR commandments and when the light bulb went on. Did you wake up at 2 in the morning and say, "This is what I got to do. I got to write these commandments," or did they happen over
Did I find
years?
them on a mountain and
Yeah,
tablets?
Moses or whatever, hand them
Burning
to you.
bush, something.
Yeah, whatever story you want to tell, about bushes or Moses. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that I love your affinity for the commandments, and for the year that you were in our GFR squad membership community, it was just a blast to have your
Thank you.
and refreshing and beautiful, and you always I loved your perspective, and you and me, we vibe, we get it. I think that they've been really great because they weren't something that I'm like, oh, I need a lead magnet, or I need like a thing that people are going to really love. And what I did is I was in a place where I was needing to reinvent, and or not needing to, but I felt like there was a reinvention happening. And I'd been helping people with marketing and sales since 1999. And however, I found more and more and more and more I enjoyed and felt was necessary to help people get out of their own way so they can do the marketing and the selling. And then we would spend a good majority of time in that space of how are you in your own way? What's the challenge spiritually, energetically, with your relationship, with your family, with like your money, attitudes around money? Like there's just so much stuff, that gets in our way when we are mission driven because it's personal. Right. And so like those of you that are in service-based businesses, or even, even if you're not, you could be, in the healthcare, you care about what you're doing. And so it makes it personal. And so that's where we F it up. We get in our own way. And so the 12 things these are the things that I keep saying over and over again, because, I've had a chance to mentor people over long periods of time, right? So a year, 2 years, 3 years. So I get to see the patterns. And so it was me just sitting down, Kenneth, and going, okay, what do people usually need me for? What do I say over and over again? And then these 12 things came out. And then I said, well, I'm a coach, so I have to give people a question so they could really, see if that's the one for them. And then I didn't know what the 12 things were until I really gave myself a retreat and worked with some people that helped me get clear. And I knew I needed to really live in helping people get real space. That was really what I was called to do in my 20th year of business. And so that's where they all came from. It's the most things that I said over and over. So it's like I put them in print so I don't have to be a broken record.
well, not to put you on the spot, but which of the 12 commandments do you find yourself going to most often and saying, all right, I gotta actually listen to my own advice here?
Yes. Well, one of my faves is number 5, which is make yourself your most important client.
Yeah.
Make yourself your most important client. And then the confession question, which I'll just tell you a little bit more about it. The confession question is, if I was my own client, what would I tell myself? And then we don't leave it there. We say, what else would I tell myself, and what else? And I love that for the first sort of iteration of where am I getting my own way. And then I love it for the people that I work with in my unmentoring, which is like a more close way that I work with people. It's like a daily practice. It's like, where am I not taking my own advice? Where am I, if I teach alignment, where am I not aligned? If I teach how to deal with anxiety, where am I not dealing with my own anxiety? If I teach how to manifest, where am I not manifesting? If I teach intimacy, where am I not, living my own intimacy principles? But it's like we have blinders on. And I tell you, I would be out of business if there was some sort of magical potion that had people see it all, but we're just so close to it. We're so close that we can't see it, which is why I have coaches and mentors that help me GFR, and help me, unmentor and unlaunch and do all these things and make sure that I'm doing my marketing in an aligned place, which is how I even got to coming up with and distinguishing unmentoring and unlaunching, because I needed to find my own way of doing it. And then now I get to give people sort of a, how do I do it on my own terms? How do I do it,
Yeah.
being my own best client? And so number 5, Kenneth, it's number 5, make yourself your most important client.
Yeah, you mentioned, I think it was 10, and I apologize. I don't know them in order, but I know them.
Come on now.
But the one that I always ask myself is, if I was my client, what in the hell would I tell myself? Because a lot of times, and I think a lot of the coaches, 5, okay, it was number 5. Thanks for the tip. Like I said, maybe I'll edit it, maybe I won't. It's number 5
Don't
that
you
I
dare
look.
edit.
It's number 5 that I look at most often. But what would I tell myself if I was my client? And a lot of times, much like you go back to your commandments, I go back to, I wrote a whole freaking book about brand culture strategy. So the problem that
That's
I'm
the bitch
dealing,
about books. It's in
yeah,
writing. Now you gotta do
yeah,
what you say.
So why don't you figure out if it's a brand problem, culture problem, or a strategy problem, and maybe you'll start going down, the right path, like you tell your clients that they need to do. So from a, I also, I always wondered, uh, did the commandments come first, or did the podcast and show and mastermind of the Get Effing Real come first? What came first, the chicken or the egg?
The podcast came first, and I had these 12 things, though. When the podcast was being birthed, and I was like, it's Get Real, but Get Real wasn't urgent enough or like activating enough, so I added the F. And but I had these 12 things, and I was like, what are these things? And then they became the 12 GFR commandments. So I think the podcast came first, and then then that informed what these 12 things were. So the 12 things, were in my notes, and scribbles and the margins and all that, but I didn't really know what they were.
Yeah. So in building your brand, or building the brand, because you already had a brand, all you basically did was do the work, which we all need to do, which was to put it together and get it out there in the right vehicles, the podcast, the mastermind, and all the other avenues that you use. In that journey of building that Get Effing Real brand, where did you hit the biggest speed bump? Where did you hit the biggest
With the
problem?
F.
With the F?
I mean, in the birthing process, I got to walk out to the number 3, don't worry about being normal, proper, polite, because people were pushing back. Not people, my colleagues, my friends, gurus that we all know that are my friends, telling me, I don't know, Cherney, I don't think you should put the F word in there. And that's going to turn people off that really might need your help. And kind of looks like you're trying too hard. And it definitely caused me pause. It was like part of the birthing process to go through that and really have to kind of dig deep in the unapologeticness that is me and just go, you know what? I have been teaching conscious marketing for 21 years. You appeal to your ideal client, and only your ideal client, and don't waste time trying to appeal to people that are not your ideal client. So I essentially, obviously, decided to keep the F in, and it's not for everybody, and that's okay. And it's actually really handy and really helpful, because people that are really turned off and because there's a lot of people that don't use the word, but they don't mind that I use it. Like, there's a lot of people that are like, I don't really use that word, Lisa Cherney, but I love that you do, and like that's cool. They're my ideal clients too. But the people that are really offended, I don't feel like they're part of this conversation, and that's okay. So it's really, I think it's super handy when you know what you're taking a stand for, and in our unlaunch, we call it your soapbox, like when you know what that thing is, it's for reals, not just because it sounds good or someone told you that's what people want. Like, it's really your thing. It's like a compass, it kind of helps you. It's like, oh, am I pushing the envelope? Well, is it part of your soapbox? Is that going to help you communicate the stand you're taking? Well, then go for it.
Yeah. Well, as you said, your whole thing is being unapologetically you. And if it's filtering out people that just would never be your client anyway. And I tell my clients this all the time, is not everybody is your customer. Not everybody is your member or your client. And if you've got to work that hard in the initial stages, you know what? maybe they're just not for you, and you really need to define that niche a little bit better.
And it doesn't matter if they pay you extra or more. It's not
Yeah,
worth it.
yeah, yeah. I it's funny because I talked to a few other icons of influence from the New Media Summit. Big shout out New Media Summit. Thank you, Steve
Yeah.
Holzer. And a few of them haven't quite learned that yet. I we get on these masterminds and I hear, oh, I got another client from hell. And after a while, I said, well, why do you keep doing this? There's this thing in sales that we call qualifying. So that F probably qualifies a lot of people right off the bat for you.
Yes, it does. And if you find that you're taking on clients that are paying the butt and you don't understand why, go through the commandments and see where
Yeah,
your blind spot is.
yeah, that's great advice. So speaking of advice, what is possibly other than listening to your show, following the commandments, and
I
seeking
got nothing. That's it. That's
yeah,
it.
and seeking out the advice of a Lisa Cherney. What may be the number one tip to really make sure that in branding you're being unapologetically you?
There's this question that I would ask that's sort of a follow-up to the where am I not speaking my truth when it comes to marketing. And the question is, what would I say to my ideal clients, like the ones that really need me? What would I say to them if I wasn't worried at all about offending anyone or getting in trouble? Like if I could grab them by the shoulders and look them in the eye, like what would you really want to say?
Yeah.
And write that shit down, because it is gold, and it will have you rant, and it will have you be on your soapbox, and it will have you connect with things that you only say after someone's already working with you, 2 weeks into the gig, or when you're, have a couple drinks and you're at a cocktail party and you really let her rip. Like, it will bring up those things. And that is marketing gold.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Every once in a while, whether it's a colleague or even my dad, my dad does this with me. Yeah, he was a successful teacher for well over 40 years, and
Wow.
he'll say, well, you gotta watch what you're putting out there on social media. And I said, well, every once in a while I'll make a mistake, or say something that maybe, or type something where I have to go back and reframe it or explain it or what have you. But everything that I post is almost always positive. Sometimes I screw that up. And it's what I believe in. Yeah, so all of my clients, past, present, and I'm sure future, somewhere agree with where I stand in this unfortunate divisive world. And if you don't agree with me, that's perfectly fine. God bless you. But yeah, I put that out there because the clients that are attracted to me have some of those same beliefs. So by not putting it out there in being vanilla, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Yes. And the number one thing that gets in the way, you didn't ask me this, but I felt like I was
No,
getting
go
your
for it.
telepathy. So the number one thing that
We're on the
that
same
gets,
wavelength,
we
Lisa. Go for it.
totally are. We totally are. It's because your hairline is like my husband's. Um, the
He's got
number
to, I
one,
never met him, but he's got to be a handsome man. Go
he's
ahead.
a handsome fella. The number one thing that gets in the way of being unapologetic is the fear of not being liked,
Yeah.
right? And at the core, it's shame and unworthiness, right? And so, not to get too deep and philosophical on y'all, but for those of you that are hearing us talk and saying, "Oh, that's easier said than done," like, because our inclination is we want to be liked, and we're afraid to piss anybody off and make waves, and then it makes we have to have difficult conversations, and like there's you and I somehow missed that gene. I don't often feel that way, although I'm not totally immune, but it's not as inherent as it is for many people. And I find that in the unmentoring work that I've done, which, by the way, what makes it unmentoring is, the number one thing standing in your way is you, not a skill or something that you don't have. It's you, and that you're your business evolution is linked to your own personal evolution. That's the distinction with unmentoring. And so getting to be in that space, it's really juicy with people. That's what I'm seeing. It's like, you know, people have even said, like, you're my marketing shame reduction coach. You know, it's like, you know, you've helped
Sounds like
me.
a new brand.
Totally. Like, you've helped me forgive myself for all of the big launches I've done that I've spent a ton of money on and didn't get me where I wanted to go. Or like, and then I feel like, oh, I made this investment in this mastermind and I'm still where I am. And like, working with you has helped me see what I got from those and how it did have a purpose. And you helped me see that I'm doing marketing that wasn't in alignment with who I am. And I don't really like, you know, webinars with millions of bonuses and artificial urgency. And I don't really like that. You helped me see it, and you make it okay, Lisa. You give me permission and you make it okay. And so I wanted to put that thing in with the unapologetic thing, because I think it, for those that are hearing it, you can't freaking connect with that word even. And it just feels so unattainable. I get it. And people that I'm working with in my orbit are sort of on their way to that. That's what they really want, is the end state. And so just look to see, like, where are there bits of things that I'm feeling shameful about, you know? And we're surprised to see that it's marketing things or business things, business failures, failed partnerships, debt, things that we have shame about that keeps us from moving forward, because we're, you know, that, you know, it's like commandment number 11, embrace you're not the same person you were when you made those mistakes, and they will not repeat. You know, like, if we just admit, like, I ain't that gal who did that thing, you know, I'm not her anymore. I'm not him anymore. And so forgive yourself and, you know, and move on. And that's really what the GFR squad is about a lot, is share it. Is we have these monthly confession calls, and it helps people just say the things, you know, and all we do on the call is say the things. I don't coach people, and you don't have to commit to taking action. Like, you can get on
You
and
can
say the
take
things.
action, not take action.
We
It's
don't
up to
care.
you.
Yeah. But there is taking action and saying the thing. I don't always share that part.
Exactly.
Shh, don't tell.
We won't even put it in the show.
Shh, don't tell.
But yeah, I love what you're saying about, you know, being worried that you're gonna piss somebody off. And I see it with so many businesses, especially in the financial space, but in other businesses too. But in the financial,
the regulated ones often have layer. We're gonna get in trouble. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I joke, you know, somewhat half joke, I guess, is that when you go into the banking environment, you know, even if you had a great personality, you know, there's a stick that they shove up your ass, and you have to walk around with that stick for years until you break out of that industry. Fortunately,
Thank you for that vivid picture.
Yeah, I knew you would appreciate it.
I do.
But fortunately, yeah, with a lot of great millennial executives, I found that stick a lot less frequently over the last 5 to 10 years, which is refreshing to see. But I tell people, especially in the financial industry, is they're so worried about, you know, pissing off, you know, a couple of customers. You know, it's like, well, you know, if we do this campaign, if we roll out this service, if we do this, you know, everybody, you know, over 85 is going to really be upset with us. How many members do you have over 85? Well, that's
and they
about.
Won't be pissed for long.
That's 7.2% of our membership. So even though this would be good for 90-some% of our membership and really take our business forward, we're going to focus on pissing off possibly this 7.5%. And I always share this secret. I guarantee you, right now, there are customers sitting at home, former and current, that are pissed at you. They're pissed at something that you did 12 and a half years ago. It's like, they didn't cash that check for me, and I don't know why I still bank with these people. So, yeah, if you're gonna, even if you go through life in your marketing and branding and your business to try to not piss anybody off, I guarantee you're pissing somebody off right now. So don't worry about it. do what's best for your business.
I love that. I love it. It reminds me of my thing I say about bragging when people are like, oh, I'm worried I'm bragging. I'm like, if you're worried about bragging, it's unlikely you actually are bragging, because the people that brag, they don't really worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So let's brag about you. Last question is, where can people tap into your great brilliance, the show, your squad, all of your fun stuff? Where can they best find you, Lisa?
At GFR dot life, LIFE is the main site, and /squad /unmentor /12C to get those commandments, 1, 2, C. And yeah, I'd love to stay in connection with you. I love to hear from people. I answer every single email or inquiry. Yeah, so it's a GFR is as a journey that we are all on. And if I can help you stay on it or be a bit more committed to it, I would love to do that in the squad or otherwise.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate having just another awesome conversation with you.
You're very welcome. It was great getting to be in your world for a bit.
You're always welcome in my world. Thank you to all of you that have watched this episode of Branding the Experience. Make sure that you run out and go and get those commandments. Go and connect with Lisa, and I'll be back with you in about a week with another great show. Take care.